Hello and welcome back to the Core Learning channel. Today we're going to be looking at factorising quadratics. So, what is factorising a quadratic? Well, a quadratic equation in its standard format would be ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This is where a, b and c are going to be integers. Factorising simply means to put into brackets. So factorising a quadratic is taking this equation and putting it into brackets, in this case 2 brackets. So as an example, we might have x squared plus 2x plus 1. If we were to put this into 2 brackets, we would get x plus 1 times x plus 1. And if you've done the work on expanding brackets, if you expand the brackets on the right hand side, you'll see you get x squared plus 2x plus 1. So there are two cases that we're going to look at. The first is factorising when a is equal to 1, and the second is factorising when a is not equal to 1. So a is the term before x squared. So how do we deal with this? So if we were to substitute 1 instead of a, the quadratic equation standard format becomes x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So what is the method for dealing with this? Well, first things first, we need to rearrange the equation into the standard format. So this is where we have x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we might get a question that says x squared equals minus bx minus c. We want you to factorize this. So you'd need to understand how to rearrange formulas to get the minus bx and the minus c to the left hand side and then set it equal to 0. So once we've done this, we're going to write out 2 brackets with x's at the start of each. Okay. Our next step is we need to understand the next 2 terms to put inside the brackets. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'll sort of dive into this a little bit and explain how we're going to work this out. So we've got this quadratic equation, x squared plus bx plus c, and we're going to set it equal to x plus d times x plus e. So d and e are just placeholder variables that we're going to use for now, and we want to work out what these values of d and e are going to be. So how do we do this? Well, let's expand the brackets on the right hand side. So if we do this, we get x squared plus dx plus ex plus d times e. And we've said that this is equal to x squared plus bx plus c. So we can now simplify. So we've got an x squared and we've got a dE, and in the middle we've got dx plus ex. So these are both x terms. So what we can do is we can simplify this and say dx plus ex is the same as d plus e times x. What we do now, if we compare this to the original quadratic equation on the left-hand side, which is x squared plus bx plus c, we can compare the different terms. So what do I mean by this? Well, we've got our x term here on the left-hand side, which is this b, and we, on the right-hand side, have d plus e. So what this means is d plus e is equal to this b term. Now this is obviously a little bit abstract at the moment because we don't have numbers, but b would represent some number. So we would have the 2 terms that we have in our bracket after the x added together have to equal this b term, whatever this might be. And then if we again compare, this time we're going to compare the c term. So we have the c term is equal to this d times e. So we need to find 2 numbers which are represented by d and e, which added together are going to give this b term, and which multiplied together are going to give this c term. And remember, you're going to know what b and c are based on the equation. So as an example, if we had x squared plus 2x plus 1, the b term would be 2 and the c term would be 1. And we'd need to find a pair of numbers that satisfy both these conditions. So going back, we've now, using these conditions, hopefully can work out what the d and the e terms are. And we set this these brackets equal to 0. Once we have this, we now have, so we'll have x plus e, where we know what d and e are, and this is equal to 0. Well, pretty simply, to satisfy this condition, we're going to need a value of x such that each bracket in turn equals 0. So obviously, the way we do this, in the case of the x plus d bracket, x is going to need to take on the value minus d. And this is because minus d plus d is equal to 0, and therefore 0 times this x plus e bracket is 0. And then likewise on the other side, we're going to have x plus e, we need to set this to 0, in which case we're going to have that x is equal to minus e, as minus e plus e is equal to 0, and therefore when we multiply it by x plus d, this also gives us 0. So the values of x which are going to satisfy this are minus d and minus e. So I appreciate this has been fairly abstract at this point, so I think it's probably a good idea to actually run through an example that has some numbers to help you try and understand. So as I said, the first step, we've got this equation and it's solve x squared minus 2x equals 15. So you can see this hasn't come in the quadratic equations sort of standard format. So what we do is we take this x squared minus 2x equals 15. We're going to move this 15 across to the left-hand side by subtracting it. So we get x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. This is now in the format that we can work with. So our next step, we want to write out two brackets with x's at the start of each, and these placeholder variables, d and e. Once we've done this, we now need to work out what our values of d and e are going to be. So first things first, what is our b term here? Well, our b term is this is the value before the x. So in this case, this is minus 2. So as you remember, the conditions were that d plus e equals b. So we've got that d plus e is equal to minus 2. And then our second condition is that d times e is equal to c. And in this case, our c term is the number term on the end, which is going to be minus 15. So we need to find these two terms, d and e, such that d plus e equals minus 2 and d times e equals minus 15. Well, if we run through some different combinations, eventually you should be able to find that the d term is going to be equal to 3 and our e term is going to be equal to minus 5. So we can now put these into our brackets. So we said that it's going to be x plus d times x plus e. So we said that d is equal to 3. So substituting this in, we get x plus 3 as our first bracket. Then our second bracket, we've said that e is equal to minus 5. So we're going to have x minus 5. And these are going to be our two brackets. Now what we want to do, we just want to do a sanity check and make sure that we haven't missed something. So let's just expand this out to double check that this actually gives the original quadratic equation. So by doing this, we're going to expand this out. We get x squared and we get plus 3x minus 5x minus 15, which simplified is going to be x squared minus 2x minus 15, which is the original equation. So we know we're on the right path. And our last step, so this has asked us to actually solve. So when we're trying to solve it, we need to work out what our values of x are such that the equation is equal to 0. So in this case, we're going to have, first of all, the first bracket, x plus 3, we want to set this to 0. In this case, this gives us that x equals minus 3 is going to solve this equation. So minus 3 plus 3 equals 0. On the second bracket, we have x minus 5 equals 0. So to satisfy this condition, x must equal 5. So now we're going to look at some more examples. With all of these, if you want, just go through and try and prove the answer yourself. It's just some more questions where you can see if you've understood the logic from getting from the original quadratic equation to the final factorized form. So the first one I have here is x squared plus 4x plus 4. When we factorize this, we're going to get x plus 2, x plus 2. We have x squared plus 3x minus 4, which factorized becomes x plus 4, x minus 1. We have x squared plus 11x plus 30, which factorized becomes x plus 5, x plus 6. And the last one I have on here is x squared minus 5x minus 6, which factorized becomes x minus 2, x minus 3. So it's time for you to have a go at a few questions yourself. So the first one I've got here, we have factorize and solve x squared plus 10x minus 24 is equal to 0. So when you're ready, pause the video, have a go, and come back when you want to run through the answer. So hopefully you managed to work through the steps there and find the solution. So how are we going to go about solving this? Well, the first thing we want to do, obviously the equation is already in the form we want it, so we don't have to do any rearranging here. So the first thing we can do is we're going to write out our brackets. We've got our x terms at the start of each bracket, and then we've got our d and e terms which we need to work out. So we have d plus e is going to be equal to the b term, which is equal to 10 in this case. And we have d times e is going to be equal to the c term, which is minus 24 in this particular case. So just by the process of elimination and trial and error, we should get that our d term is equal to 12 and our e term is equal to minus 2. Now I should say it doesn't matter which way round you do this. You can have the d term as minus 2 and the e term as 12. It doesn't matter. It's just the way I've chosen to write out these brackets. But yeah, if you put that e is equal to 12 and d is equal to minus 2, that's fine. It's still going to work out exactly the same. So now we can fill these values of d and e in our brackets, and we get that x plus 12 times x minus 2 expanded. This should equal our original equation. So does it? Well, when we expand this out, we get x squared plus 12x minus 2x minus 24. And when we simplify that, that becomes x squared plus 10x minus 24. So yes, we're on the right track. This is working out perfectly so far. So our last step, we want to solve this. So we're going to set each bracket equal to 0. When we do this, we're going to get that x is equal to minus 12. And for the second bracket, x is equal to 2. So moving on to the next question, we have factorize and solve x squared minus 7x equals minus 12. So again, pause the video when you're ready and unpause when you want to run through the answers. So again, hopefully you managed to get through the steps and solve this particular question. How are we going to go about answering this? Well, unlike the previous example, in this one, we need to do a little bit of rearranging first. So we want to get everything on the left-hand side and then set it equal to 0. So what we need to do here is move the minus 12 across as a plus 12, and then we can set it equal to 0. So now that we have it in the form we want, our next step is going to be to set the brackets. So we're going to have our x plus d, x plus e equals 0, and we now need to find our values of d and e. So we're going to have d plus e is equal to the b term, which is minus 7, and we're going to have d times e is equal to 12, which is the c term. So again, running through the different iterations and just process of trial and error, we should get that d is equal to minus 3 and e is equal to minus 4. These are the numbers that satisfy both these conditions. If we put these values into our brackets, we get our brackets as x minus 3 times x minus 4. And now we're going to have our sanity check to check that we are on the right path. So when we multiply this out, we get x squared minus 3x minus 4x plus 12. Simplified, this becomes x squared minus 7x plus 12, which is our original expression, or at least once we've rearranged it. And our last step is to solve. Doing this, we're going to set each bracket equal to 0, And when we do this, the first bracket, the solution for x is 3, and for the second bracket, the solution for x is 4. So this is the last question we're going to do. We've got factorize and solve x squared plus 3x equals 40. So again, when you're ready, pause the video and come back when you want to hear the answer. So let's run through this. How would we solve this? So again, we need to do a little bit of rearranging here. So we have x squared plus 3x equals 40. So we want to move that 40 across to the left-hand side. So we're going to carry this across as a minus 40, and we're going to get x squared plus 3x minus 40 equals 0. We now have this equation in a format that we can work with and factorize. So again, we've got our brackets, x plus d, x plus e equals 0. Now we need to find our values of d and e. So we're going to have d plus e equals 3, which is the b term. And we're going to have d times e is equal to minus 40, which is the c term. Using trial and error, we should get that we have our two values as 8 and minus 5. We're going to put these into the brackets, and we get x plus 8, x minus 5 as our two brackets. We do our sanity check, so we're going to expand this out just to check that we are actually getting the original expression. So when we do this, we get x squared plus 8x minus 5x minus 40, which simplified becomes x squared plus 3x minus 40, which was the original expression, so we know this is fine. And then we're going to set each bracket equal to 0 to find our values of x, which satisfy this equation. So doing this, we get x equal to minus 8 and x equal to 5. So the next situation we need to look at is the case when a is not equal to 1. So when a is not equal to 1, our equation can't be simplified beyond ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. What is the method for dealing with this? Well, like last time, we have to have our equation in the standard format, which is where we set the equation equal to 0. So if we, for example, had ax squared equals minus bx minus c, we'd need to move that minus bx and minus c across as plus to the left-hand side to get ax squared plus bx plus c, and then set this equal to 0. When it comes to the brackets, we're going to have an ax term in one bracket and an x term in the other bracket. So that's one slight difference from the previous examples where a was equal to 1. And now we actually have a slightly different conditions for finding those values of d and e. And the reason and the way we can work this out is, let's say we've got our expression here. So we've got two brackets, and we'll call this value in front of the x. We'll just call this f for now. So we're going to have two brackets that have the form fx plus d and x plus e. So what we want to do here is we want to expand out this bracket on the right hand side. And what we're saying is that ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to fx squared plus dx plus e times fx plus de. So we're going to do something similar to what we did last time, but it's obviously going to work out slightly different because we have this f term now as well. So what we can do is, again, comparing the different terms of the quadratic. When we look at our x squared term, which is this a, what this tells us is that a is equal to f. Now this is important because we didn't know what f was, but we now know that f is equal to a. So we can now also look at our b term. So our b term is equal to d plus ef, but what we've actually said is that f is equal to a, and we know the value of a. So what we can say is d plus a times e is equal to this b term. And then again, comparing our c term, we have the same condition for our c term, which is that d times e is going to be equal to this c term. So going back to how we work this out, We then just need to again find the values of D and E which satisfy those conditions. Once we've done that, we're then going to get the answers. If we're asked to solve this, we're going to get that x is going to be equal to minus d over a. So remember, this is going to be because we have to set each bracket individually equal to 0. So the left side bracket, which is ax plus d, when we set this to 0 and rearrange, we're going to get that x equals minus d over a. And then for the x plus e bracket, to set this to 0, x will be equal to minus e, which is the same as before. So again, I think the best way to try and understand this is to run through an example. So we have 3x squared plus 10x equals minus 3. So we're going to rearrange this to start. To get this into the standard format, or where we have it set equal to 0, we're going to need to move this minus 3 across as a plus 3. We now have our brackets, which are going to be, as we said, ax plus d times x plus e. So in this case, our a term is 3. So we have 3x plus d times x plus e is equal to 0. So what are our conditions now? So our conditions are that d plus, and remember it's d plus a times e equals b. So the b term is going to be 10, and the a term is 3. So we have d plus 3e equals 10. And then, like before, we have d times e is equal to c. And in this case, c is just plus 3. So using trial and error, we're going to find that our two values for d and e should be 1 and 3. So if we put this inside the brackets, we get our brackets as 3x plus 1 times x plus 3. We can do our sanity check to make sure this works. So when we expand these brackets out, we get 3x squared plus 9x plus x plus 3. And this simplified becomes 3x squared plus 10x plus 3, which is the original expression. Now to solve this, we have the first bracket set equal to 0. When we rearrange this, we're going to get 3x equals minus 1, which means x equals minus 1 divided by 3. And then we have x plus 3 equals 0. And when we rearrange this, we get that x is equal to minus 3. So again, I'll just run through a few quick examples, and you can obviously pause this if you need to and try and see if you can get the same answer. So our first one, we have 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. This factorized is going to be 2x plus 1 times x plus 2. We have 4x squared minus 8x minus 12. When we factorize this, we're going to get 4x plus 4 times x minus 3. We have 3x squared minus 7x plus 2. This factorized is 3x minus 1 times x minus 2. And the last one we have is 5x squared plus 17x minus 12. And this factorized is 5x minus 3 times x plus 4. So once again, it's time for you to have a go at a few questions yourself. So the first question we have here is to factorize and solve 2x squared plus 10x plus 12 is equal to 0. So pause the video when you're ready and unpause the video when you want me to go through the answer. So hopefully you're able to find that okay. How are we going to solve this? We have the equation in the form we want, so we don't have to rearrange anything. So we go straight to setting up our brackets. So in this case, we're going to have 2x plus d times x plus e equal to 0. This is going to be the form of our brackets. Now we need to work out what our conditions for d and e are. So we're going to have, so it's d plus a times e. So in this case, our a is equal to 2, because it's a term before the x squared. So we have d plus 2 times e is equal to our b term, which is 10. And we have d times e is equal to our c term, which is 12. And using trial and error, we should get that the two values which satisfy these conditions are 4 and 3. We're going to plug these back into our brackets, and we get that we have 2x plus 4 times x plus 3. We're going to do our sanity check. So we we expand those brackets out, which gives us 2x squared plus 6x plus 4x plus 12. We simplify this to get 2x squared plus 10x plus 12, which is the original expression. Now the last step is just to solve. So we have 2x plus 4 equals 0, which means 2x equals minus 4, which means x is equal to minus 4 over 2, which is minus 2. And then we have x plus 3 is equal to 0, so x is equal to minus 3. So the next question we have is to factorize and solve 3x squared minus 14x minus 5 equal to 0. So pause the video when you're ready and come back when you want me to run through the answer. So hopefully you managed to find the answer to that fine. How do we go about solving this? So once again, we have nothing to rearrange, so we can just jump straight into figuring out what the bracket's going to look like. So in this case, we're going to have 3x plus d times x plus e is equal to 0. So now we need to work out our conditions for d and e. So we're going to have d plus 3e is equal to minus 14. And we're going to have d times e is equal to minus 5. So remember that minus 14 is our b term and that minus 5 is our c term. Using trial and error, we should get that our two terms which satisfy these conditions are 1 and minus 5. So putting this back into our brackets, we get 3x plus 1 times x minus 5. If we expand this, we get 3x squared minus 15x plus x minus 5. Simplified, this becomes 3x squared minus 14x minus 5, which is the original expression. So this tells us that our brackets are correct. And then our last step is to solve. So to solve this, we're going to have 3x plus 1 is equal to 0, which means 3x equals minus 1, which means x equals minus a third. And then we have x minus 5 equals 0, so x equals 5. And our final question of the day, we have to factorize and solve 5x squared equals 12x minus 4. Pause the video and come back when you want to run through the answer. So for this last one, our first step is that we need to rearrange into the standard format. So to do this, we're going to carry across the 12x as a minus 12x and the minus 4 as a plus 4. So we get 5x squared minus 12x plus 4 equals 0. Now we're going to write out our brackets. So we have 5x plus d times x plus e equals 0. Now what are our conditions for d and e? Well, we have d plus 5e equals minus 12. And we have d times e equals 4. And as a reminder, that minus 12 is our b term and that 4 is our c term. And we should be able to work out that the two values for d and e are going to be minus 2 for both of them. So putting this into the bracket, we get 5x minus 2 and x minus 2. And when we expand this out, we get 5x squared minus 10x minus 2x plus 4. Which simplified equals 5x squared minus 12x plus 4. And this is the original expression, so we know we have the correct values in the brackets. And to solve this, we have 5x minus 2 equals 0. This means that 5x equals 2. And this means that x equals 2 over 5. And then we have x minus 2 equals 0, which means that x equals 2. So as always, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and learnt something today. If anything is unclear or you have any questions, leave a comment and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and we'll see you at the next one.